Every day, heroes walk among us, ordinary people doing extraordinary things to change lives, restore hope, and create a better world. But they can't do it alone. This is more than just a story. It's a call to action.
Welcome to the Ripple Effects, where we shine a light on the organizations turning compassion into action. Because when we come together, hope isn't just a wish, it's a reality. And you have the power to be part of the change. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Ripple Effects, where we talk about the unsung heroes that walk among us each and every day to make a positive impact in the world. And today we have with us a very special guest, Robin Grable from the AscendCollective.org. And what she does is absolutely amazing, and the work that she does to help our vets. You know, there's 150,000 military families that cannot put food on their tables. And one of the reasons is because they can't find a job, even though they've had fabulous skills. They've trained hundreds of soldiers. They've done logistics and all of these amazing things to protect our country. And yet they get back to America and they cannot find a job. So this is where Robin Grable and the AscendCollective.org come in. And Robin is doing amazing work to help these vets get the jobs that they need. Robin, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Oh, thank you, Wendy. I appreciate the opportunity to really talk about this subject that is very near and dear to my heart, of course.
Yes, yes. And tell us how you came about this. I've read your story, but go ahead and share your story with our listeners.
Yeah, so I went in the Navy right out of high school, and it was really a choice that I just made because I didn't feel like I had any other options. So the Navy recruiter came to high school one day and said, join the Navy and see the world. And so I did. And I had a good experience in the Navy. There were a few things that happened to me. I had some trauma and some issues in the experience. But when I got out, there was no transition. I was in the Navy one day in uniform, out the next day. Back in 1988, there was nothing really to help veterans translate their skills and really understand how they could transfer them to great careers as a civilian. So fast forward, I spent the first 12 years out of the Navy in 10 different jobs, 4 different states, really trying to find my purpose again, where my skills fit, what I was supposed to be doing. And then fast forward another 13 years, I met an Army veteran's wife in a chat room. We were finishing our masters, and she commented that her husband had been out for 6 months and could not get an interview. And he was spiraling downward, and she didn't know how to help him. And
Yeah.
I recognized that obviously in myself, and it stung really bad. It was 25 years after I'd gotten out of the Navy. It was 13 years beyond 9/11. All of these, why is this still happening? And meanwhile, not only for veterans, it's military spouses as well. The military spouse unemployment rate is 21% because employers won't invest in them. 21%. And it's been that way for a decade. And that's
Oh
another
my
big
gosh, that's like more than 5 times the average unemployment rate.
Exactly. And it's because employers won't invest in a military spouse who needs to move, who needs to work remote, or who needs to work a flexible schedule. But when you think about it, those 150,000 military families, the majority of those are on active duty and cannot put food on the table. So when you think about it in those terms, it becomes even a worse problem for
Yeah.
our country, because
Yes.
if we can't put food on a military family's table while they're serving on active duty, what are we saying about joining the military? What are we
Right.
saying? And then when they get out of the military and they can't get an interview because of the barriers, because of the bias, because less than 1% of the population has ever worn the uniform and does not understand what somebody does in the military. And
Mm.
instead of trying to understand even just a little bit, they just set it aside. They just dismiss it. They find ways to remove those veterans, those military spouses from the equation, and they're missing out. They're missing out on great talent. It's just, and so that's what the catalyst was. It was, I had to fix this. I had to do something,
Yeah.
graced with creativity, and really understanding the problem of resumes and applications. We decided to build a program that would translate skills and match them directly to employers without the barriers, without the bias, really saying, you were a data processing technician in the Navy. Here's the skills that you learned and earned from that experience. Those skills are plain English, plain language. You don't have to know my title. You don't have to know what my assignments were in the military. You
Mhm.
just look at my skills. And now we can have a conversation based on that instead of you saying, you were in infantry for 24 years. I don't need a security guard. I have no idea what to do with you in my company.
Right.
So instead of just, dismissing that wonderful talent that's sitting in front of you, you now have a conversation based on the skills that that person brings to your organization.
Well, I think even above the skills, there's honor, there's sacrifice, there's being part of a team, there's working together, there's camaraderie. I mean, there's so many social skills or people skills that are inherent in the soldiers in the military. So,
And think about it, they're learning in very sometimes a lot of crisis environments or
yeah.
cultural environments that most people in the US would never be exposed to, but they bring
Mhm.
that sense of, camaraderie. And, when you're in the military and you look to your left or your right, you see the person in the uniform standing next to you who
Yes.
has your back.
Yes.
So when
Yeah.
you go to a civilian community and a civilian career, you're doing the same thing. You're looking at the people left and right of you, and you're not seeing color, you're not seeing ethnicity, you're not seeing age, you're not seeing gender. Those veterans see their teammate.
Yes. Yes. They're fighting for the person standing next to them.
Exactly.
Yes. And who better to have in your organization than someone who's going to fight for the person standing next to you?
Exactly. Exactly. And who won't quit until the mission is done, until they
Right.
know that they've accomplished what you needed them to accomplish, or they've pivoted, they've thought outside of the box. We've got limited supplies. How do we accomplish this mission, this task with the
Mhm.
limited amount of resources that we have? A lot of people in the civilian community don't have to think that way because there seems to be unlimited resources. Oh, we'll just spend more money on this. We'll just spend more money. Well, in the government, in the military, you don't get that luxury. You don't get that opportunity. So you learn how to adapt and have that ability to think outside of the box. Not to mention, they spend probably 3/4 of our time in the military training for something that is going to happen, training for something that could happen, training for something that, might happen, but we're always
Mhm.
training and thinking about things, and we're being trained by some of the world's best instructors, educators, technology, and the civilian community gets to take advantage of that, but they
Yeah.
don't. And so, yeah,
Well, it's to their own demise.
it
It
is.
really is because number one, whenever I see a soldier or someone in the military, my first response is thank you for your service
Yeah,
because they're fighting on my behalf. They may have never met me in my entire life
right.
or millions of other Americans, and yet they're going and sacrificing their relationships, their home, their time, their lives to make us free. They always say freedom isn't free. And the
Right.
fact that they are not uplifted and honored in the
Yeah.
way that they should be, it angers me so much because of the things that we honor in America and around the world are temporary passing fads that are here today, gone tomorrow. But the military is what keeps America free. And to
Yes.
not honor them and to not pay them more. I mean, people that run after a little white ball get paid millions
Oh,
and millions and millions of dollars, but someone who's putting their life on the line for you can't put food on their table. That's disgusting.
there are NFL cheerleaders who make more than somebody in the military. Hello. I mean, that there's just, and yes, I could get on this soapbox. Well,
Oh,
the
do get on the
downside to it
soapbox.
though, I mean, think about it. Yeah, a cheerleader that makes more than somebody in the military works temporary hour, a temporary schedule,
Yeah.
and a military family can't put food on the table. There's
Yeah.
something absolutely wrong with that. And when every time I see these athletes, and no offense to the athletes and their talent, absolutely talented, but when they complain about their $90 million, you know, bonus or
Contract.
whatever,
Yeah.
and they got a hangnail and they can't play ball or they can't do a job. Really? I mean, hello, you get a hangnail out on the battlefield, you're not going home. Like you're
Right.
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 You're
Right.
out there. And so it just, oh, it angers me so much. And when you think about it, right now we have an all volunteer force.
Yes.
Or this continues to go on where military spouses can't get a great career because they're a military spouse. Veterans can't get jobs outside of or careers outside of the military easily. Who's going to volunteer for that?
Mm.
So, do you want to go back to a draft? Do you want to go back to being told that you're going to join the military? Or do we want to support who we have volunteering, raising
Yes.
their right hand all on their own, making those sacrifices to be away from their families, to miss birthdays, to miss Christmases?
Yeah. To miss the birth of their children,
Yes. Yeah.
marriages, funerals. I mean, all sorts of things. Yeah. The
People
sacrifice
really
is
need to start
immeasurable.
looking at it. Yeah.
It really is. It's immeasurable, and it should be priceless.
Yes.
Priceless.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm in total agreement that this should not be. But you're changing this. Ascendcollective.org is changing this. Tell us
We-
what your success rate is, because I know it's been phenomenal.
Yeah. So we've got like on our skills matching side, which is where we do the translation and then we match to employers, we've got about a 90% match rate. So each time you put your profile in, or each time a candidate creates a profile, they get matched to to an employer about 95% of the time, 90% of the time. But
That's awesome.
the reality of what we're really doing is helping them build a foundation, and that's really what the nonprofit, our the ascendcollective.org does, is help them take those skills and then go through our academy and learn, how do you present those skills, how do you start to tell your story about those skills, so you don't get tripped up when somebody says, well, your title in the military was XYZ, I don't understand that. Okay, we don't even have to talk about that. Let me tell you about my skills that I earned while
Right.
I was in the military. Here's
Yeah.
what I did with those skills, and really feel proud of that, instead of saying, okay, well, here's just somebody else that I'm going to have to justify my existence to because you don't understand what I did in the military. Let's not
Yeah.
even talk about it. Let's just say I served, great. Let's move on to what I can contribute to your organization. So our academy helps them learn how to brand themselves, learn how to create their profiles around their skills, learn how to talk about their skills, and then learn about other resources that can help them. They also get assigned a career coach so that they can learn how to network and navigate all the nuances. We tell people, don't just apply blindly online. Find somebody who's been in the career that you're thinking about, network with those people. So we help make those connections. But the ascendcollective.org is all about advocating, educating, and supporting those communities, veterans, military spouses, diversely able, justice impacted, because they're facing the biggest barriers just to get to an interview. So
Yeah. So when you get them interviews and you're saying that your rate is 90 to 95%, is that for them actually getting a job or just getting to the interview?
just getting to the interview. Now,
Okay.
because that's what we can control, right?
Mhm.
But right
Yeah.
now, you can't even get to an interview. If you apply for a job
Right.
online, you're going into the black hole of the abyss. So you
Mhm.
can't even get an interview. So our goal, our objective in creating this was to make those interview connections happen. Because here's the reality. Things change in a business. They decide not to hire somebody. They decide to hire somebody internally. They make the hiring decisions. But if
Yeah.
we can present the best candidate and the best skills for their business and educate them on why hiring this person who's a veteran or military spouse, diversely able, justice impacted, makes a difference in their business,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, they're going to hire that person. So,
That's awesome.
right. But we really measure our performance and our goals and our impact on getting somebody to an interview.
And it is huge because these days, it used to be that you would apply for a job, you get an interview, and maybe they have 5 candidates and maybe you did or did not get the job. But these days, when everything is online and you don't have the right keywords or whatever, and there's 500 other applicants, and it's a computer that's scanning your resume to see if you have the right words that match the job position and all that stuff, to get them to an interview is huge, because then once they're in front of someone, you get them to the 3rd-yard line. They just have to get the ball
Exactly.
over the goal. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
And here's the thing with, when applicant tracking systems were built, all these large businesses needed a way to filter all the applicants that they were getting.
Yep.
So instead of putting good filters in there and kind of skills that I need,
Yeah.
they went the other direction and said, all right, let's weed out everybody who doesn't have an education. Let's weed out everybody who doesn't have 5 years of industry experience. Let's weed out everybody
right.
who, didn't go to this school. So instead of saying, and we always, I love this, I need somebody who's been in the job for 5 years. Why? Like, what are you looking for? What does that person need to have? What skills do you expect them to have earned in 5 years in the job? Because I could be in the job for 5 years, 4 of which I've been on a performance plan. I'm not performing well in the job, or I've been trained by that employer, your competitor, who may not have trained me in the way you need me to work in your business. So why not look for the skills? But they've gone so far to the right of let's just weed out people instead of let's invite people in. And that's what we're trying to change.
Well, and in 2008, when, the rug got pulled out from under the American economy, the requirements that employers wanted for a job got just ridiculous.
Right.
Like, for an executive assistant, you need to have a bachelor's degree or something. Give me a break. And they're paying $12 an hour or something.
Exactly.
What? You're out of your mind. But they knew it. We had a neighbor that went and applied for a job, and she said, how many other applicants are there? And there was 500.
Exactly.
That's how many people were out of work, and the competition for the position was so high. Yeah. So they made the requirements just ridiculous. You don't need a bachelor's degree to be an executive assistant. Give me a break.
But you can accomplish that filtering and that inclusion so much better with the positive side of it. What skills do you need for your business? Find the person with those skills, because not everybody has the same skills. So if you look for what skills your business needs, you're going to find people with those skills. Now, here's the other problem with resumes. Because of the barriers, because of the filters, people are now manipulating their resumes. They're creating a resume to look just like your job description. So you have no idea what's true, what's real. And so in our platform, it's a blind matching process. It's just matched on skills. And the candidates don't know what they're going to match to until they get a call from one of our concierge managers saying, hey, you matched to this great administrative assistant position at XYZ company. Let's talk. They get an immediate interview to talk about the position, engage with our concierge, and then get an interview with the employer. So employers could actually accomplish the same thing they need to accomplish, meaning they're going to find the needles in the haystack by looking at skills instead of, again, filtering. Don't filter people out. Invite them in with what they have and what they can bring to the table. Right. It's just a small change, but it's really, it's aggravating.
It's pivotal, though. I mean, it's pivotal.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't take much to really make that small change in looking at a human being and what they bring versus what's wrong with them. Because who likes to be judged for what somebody else thinks is wrong with you? And who decided they got to be right about that,
Yeah. Well, especially if they went into the military right out of high school or whatever, that's all they've known.
Yeah.
So they're not going to have 5 years of experience in some,
but think about it, though.
Publicly traded company or something like that.
Right. But the military is almost every industry wrapped up in one, box.
Yes.
Think about, if you look at, and we use this as the example, somebody in the infantry, if you look at what they actually do in the military, there are things like logistics, human resources, team
Hmm.
leader, equipment maintenance, operational planning. There's so much more than just,
Inventory, supplies.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And those transferable skills, any company needs them. Every
Yeah.
company needs them. Not to mention the soft skills, as we talked about earlier, their leadership, their learning agility.
Right.
They're being able to be a teammate that to a
Right.
diverse environment.
Their problem solving abilities, their ability
Yes.
to pivot.
Resourcefulness, resilience. There's just so many good things about it. And the sad part about it is these large corporations really are giving lip service to veterans. They slap military friendly on their website, or they create a military recruiting team. And you know what happens? You go to talk to one of those recruiters and they say, "Oh, here's a list of our jobs. Go apply for something that you're interested in on our website." How does that help anybody? Because now they're in the abyss of, okay, you need 5 years of industry experience.
Yeah.
No, I don't think I have that, because when you're thinking about the military, you're not thinking in terms of a manufacturing or operational line of creating something, which they do in the military, or you're not
Hmm.
thinking of logistics and how had motor pool transportation duty, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
answer those questions honestly and say no. But if you ask me what skills I have, do I have the skills to do this job? You're going to
Yeah.
get a yes, and you're going to find
Yeah.
the right people.
Yeah. I love that's you really flipped the paradigm on what to look for and how to match them. And that's why you're so successful in getting them an interview.
Yeah.
Now, is there a particular area of the country where you focus, or do you do this nationwide?
So we are a national program. We've been kind of focusing on the Southeast. We've got a lot more contacts here, Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, and Texas. But we are
Hmm.
national, so we can work with employers and candidates all across the country.
Oh, I love that. Tell me a story about, because one thing that comes to mind is men, especially, really get their self esteem from their job,
Yeah,
from working.
sure.
So when a military soldier comes home and cannot find a job, I know that in your story you mentioned, I see that look in their eyes.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how demoralizing it is for them to get back, just to get back and have this world changing difference, when they're out of the uniform and they're not in the military anymore. That's a huge change and a huge stress in the first place.
It
But
is.
then to not be able to find a job, I wonder, because how often does a vet commit suicide? The
Well,
suicide
it's
rate in
different
vets is
numbers. It's about 22 a
astronomical.
day is kind of the number that people use. And it's probably higher than that. You think about the downward spiral, as I talked about the Army veteran's wife whose husband was in that, yes, your self-esteem comes from that, but it's also how you can support your family. You
Yeah.
go from being this, I'm important in the military, because we all serve a purpose in the military.
Hmm.
Every human being in the military has a purpose for being there, the
Yes.
job that they do, life and death situations all the time, whether it's you're in combat or not. If you're behind the scenes doing logistics for the people that are on the front lines, you're talking life and death decisions. You take
Yeah.
that uniform off and you become invisible, is really what it feels like, because now no one can see your name. They don't see the accomplishments that you've done in the military. They don't see what rank you are. They don't know anything about you. And you meld
Yeah.
into the 99% of the rest of the population. That's a hard pivot for people who
Oh, I
have
can
that
imagine.
sense
Yeah.
of purpose, right?
Yeah.
And really feel like they're doing something bigger than themselves. And then when they can't get an interview, even though they're told in the now transition classes, everybody wants to hire a veteran, everybody will give you six figures. No, they won't. And no, it's not that easy. So we're not doing our service members, we're doing them a disservice by filling their heads with that as they're coming out.
With some pie in the sky.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
even worse, because
It
to get
is.
their hopes up like that, that's even
Absolutely.
more demoralizing.
And the large corporations are really filling, if feeding that frenzy too because of their we're military friendly, we hire veterans, we give veterans priority. You don't really, though. When you dig under the layers of what they're actually doing, they
Yeah.
don't. They're creating more barriers. So yes, it becomes a downward spiral where you can't get a job, you can't even get an interview. Now you're running out of money or you don't have any money at all. So you get
Right.
into a depression. And then if you've got any sort of, things out of the military, that any physical issues or anything like that, now they're exacerbated. Now you're in
Yes.
more pain. Now you're more depressed. You turn to substances to help
Yeah.
feel no pain. That
Yeah.
becomes an issue. And yeah, you end up really thinking, why am I here? What
Right.
purpose do I serve? You've integrated back into your family. So service members that have been gone for 6, 9, 12 months, maybe sometimes even longer from their families keep moving forward.
Yeah.
The other,
And that's hard too, because they come home
yes,
and it's like, I was taken out of the world
yep,
for all intents and purposes. And now
absolutely.
I'm back in it and the world went on just fine without me.
Exactly. Now, how do I fit back in? And
Yeah.
now, if I can't even get an interview or a job, I can't even contribute that way. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it is a very vicious downward spiral that a lot of veterans go through. It's a cause for homelessness. It's a cause for substance abuse. It's a cause for those suicide rates, and
Yeah.
all of it could be solved very easily. The other thing about unemployment, which I always want to point out, is that people who've taken themselves out of the labor market, so veterans not applying for jobs, they're not counted in that unemployment rate. That unemployment rate only counts the people who are actually applying for jobs and in the unemployment process. It does not count the 70 million Americans who have a disability, who've taken themselves out of the labor pool because they're frustrated. It doesn't count the millions of veterans who've taken themselves out of the labor pool because of the barriers and the bias. That unemployment rate is, again, lip service that says, hey, we're doing so great. We've got a 3% unemployment rate. Then why do we still have homeless veterans,
Yeah.
unemployed military spouses? Why do we still have a 21% military spouse unemployment rate? Why are there still suicides? Why is there still substance abuse? If we were doing
Yeah.
so good at connecting them to careers outside of the military, we wouldn't have any of that.
Yes. And and not to mention PTSD. And I know that in the military, well, it depends who you talk to, but we were talking before the segment, and I've said I've been doing PTSD reports for a gentleman that goes to bat for vets to get them their PTSD ratings, their unemployment ratings, et cetera, et cetera. And the war that these vets have to fight when they get
Uh-huh.
back to America
Yeah.
with the VA just to get some semblance of justice
Yeah.
is disgusting. It literally makes me sick. And the gentleman that I do his reports for, his head just blows off his shoulders sometimes with what they put him through. Like, oh, well, you didn't have a stressor. Oh, well, I had to pick up all the dead bodies. I was on, like, oh, that's not a stressor. I'm sorry. So
Right.
for them to come back with all of that, I hate to call it baggage, but all of that mental and emotional things that they went through while they're there to get back and be demoralized and unemployed and can't find a job. I love the work that you're doing. I mean, I can't imagine how many lives you have turned around and given hope to.
Yeah, we obviously this is a passionate mission for us, and my purpose in still forming this. So if we can help one person, we know we've done good, but we want to help millions of people because they deserve it, because they're worth it, and we want others to know their value and to not let them feel like they're alone, going through these battles. The VA process is tough. I got out of the Navy with a disability. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia in the Navy. It's on my discharge papers. But when I went to apply for my disability years later, now I didn't apply for it right away because I just didn't. And finally, I was convinced that I deserved my benefits. So
Mm-hmm.
I applied. I was basically told by the doctors and the raters that because I wasn't basically a substance abuser, because I was working, and able to hold down a job, because I couldn't really prove that I'd been to the doctor every day taking pills for my condition, that it didn't happen to me. And it all was triggered from my MST, my military sexual trauma, that they also said because I didn't report it, it didn't happen. So that's what happens to people. They go in having to absolutely defend their lives and defend what's happening to them, when it should be, especially if it's already documented, it should be taken for what it's worth and given what they're worth.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And well, here's another thing is that the government incentivizes the regional offices to not to deny VA claims. So it's just this whole crooked. Thank God you're doing what you're doing, because at least you're one bright light in all of the darkness and all of the nonsense that goes on and all of the challenges that face the vets. At least they have you. And I love that you do it nationwide and that you have a 90 to 95% success rate in getting them an interview so they can get that ball over the finish line.
Absolutely.
Are there any closing remarks that you'd like to leave with the audience today, Robin?
Just really, if you're out there struggling, please reach out. Don't try to go alone. Don't think that you're alone. There's so many great people out here trying to do the right thing and help and do what we can to help. So please reach out. You're not alone. We're here.
Awesome. And you can find Robin at theascendcollective.org, theascendcollective.org. And of course, all of their information will be on our website, therippleeffects.org. And you'll be able to read Robin's story and get in touch with her and donate and support their cause. And I hope you do. You know, we didn't do this series so that you could just watch it and go, oh, well, that was nice. No, we did this so that you would get involved, that you would be proactive, that not only would you watch the ripple effect, but you would be a reason for it. So until next time, be safe, and we'll see you again. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Wendy.
You've seen the impact, you've heard the stories. Now the question is, what will you do? Whether it's a donation, sharing their mission, or getting involved, every action matters.
Visit therippleeffects.org to learn more and be part of something bigger than yourself. Because together, we're not just watching change happen, we are the change. Don't just watch the ripple.
Be the reason for it.